The episode was supposed to be a light-hearted conversation between Kelly Clarkson and the legendary Sylvester Stallone, promoting his new film and reflecting on his decades-long career. Kelly greeted Stallone warmly, joking about the iconic roles he's played, from Rocky to Rambo, and their shared history in the entertainment industry. The audience laughed along, anticipating a fun exchange filled with anecdotes and behind-the-scenes stories. But as the conversation progressed, the tone quickly shifted, and what started as an engaging discussion soon descended into unexpected tension. The conversation turned when Kelly, always known for her candidness, casually brought up the subject of Stallone's personal life. She mentioned how his past relationships and public persona had often been the subject of media scrutiny. What was meant to be a simple question about balancing fame and family quickly escalated into something much more uncomfortable. Stallone, who had rarely discussed his personal life in detail, stiffened visibly in his chair, his friendly demeanor turning to a cold, controlled calmness that suggested he was beginning to feel cornered. Kelly, perhaps sensing that she had crossed a line, tried to backpedal, but the damage was already done. She apologized, saying she didn't mean to make him uncomfortable, but Stallone, ever the professional, waved her off with a tight-lipped smile. He briefly explained that he preferred to keep his personal life private, a sentiment that many celebrities share, but Kelly pressed on. She asked him how he dealt with the constant media attention that comes with being a household name. That's when the shift in energy became undeniable. Stallone's face tightened, and the tension in the room was palpable. "I've been dealing with the press for over 50 years, he said, his voice low but firm. "But there's a line. People think they know you because they've seen you on a screen, but they don't." His words were measured, yet there was a sharp edge to them that hinted at frustration. Kelly, sensing the rising intensity, attempted to steer the conversation back to safer topics, but the damage had been done. The audience, who had been expecting a fun, light conversation, started to shift uncomfortably in their seats. What was intended to be a discussion about his latest film quickly morphed into an impromptu therapy session about the price of fame. Kelly tried to introduce some humor into the situation, making jokes about the pressures of being in the spotlight, but Stallone wasn't having it. He gave her a look that could cut through glass, his expression now one of controlled frustration. "You think it's easy being constantly under a microscope?" he snapped, his voice rising slightly, though still measured. The mood had shifted completely. What had been a light-hearted interview was now an emotionally charged confrontation. Kelly, caught off guard by Stallone's tone, apologized again, but the damage was already done. "It's not about apologies," Stallone said, his eyes narrowing. "It's about respect." His voice, though calm, carried an unmistakable weight of experience, as if he had lived through years of public scrutiny and was now unwilling to tolerate it any longer. The audience fell silent, clearly unsure of how to react. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, while others looked to Kelly for guidance. Kelly, visibly taken aback, tried to regain control of the conversation, but the moment had shifted too far beyond her reach. Stallone leaned back in his chair, his arms crossed over his chest, and stared at Kelly with an intensity that left her momentarily speechless. "I've done everything the industry has asked of me," he said quietly, his gaze unwavering. "I've put my life on the screen, and I've given everything. But there's a point when you have to stop giving. There's a point when you have to protect yourself." His words lingered in the air like a heavy weight, and Kelly, unable to find a response that felt adequate, simply nodded in acknowledgement. The audience, too, seemed at a loss for words, unsure of how to interpret the unexpected turn of events. As the silence stretched, Kelly attempted to reframe the conversation, asking Stallone about the inspiration behind some of his most iconic roles. But her words seemed to fall flat. Stallone, clearly no longer interested in playing along, simply shrugged. "Inspiration comes from everywhere," he said curtly, his tone now decidedly cool. It was evident that he no longer felt comfortable in the interview, and the vibe in the room had shifted from friendly banter to a standoff. Kelly, ever the professional, continued to smile, but her unease was palpable. With the tension mounting, Kelly's producers, sensing the delicate situation, signaled to her off-camera, urging her to move on. But Stallone, ever the man of conviction, had already made up his mind. He stood up abruptly, cutting the conversation short. "This is enough," he said, his voice steady but firm. "I am done." The room fell into stunned silence as he turned and walked off the stage, leaving a flustered Kelly Clarkson sitting in her chair. The audience, caught in the middle of an incredibly rare moment in live television, didn't know how to respond. Some awkwardly clapped, unsure if they should be applauding or apologizing. The cameras lingered for a moment, and Kelly, visibly rattled, glanced toward the producers for guidance. "Well, I guess that's it for today," she said with a forced laugh, her voice slightly tremulous. The producers quickly cut to a commercial break, but not before a moment of shock hung in the air. The audience was left in disbelief, unsure of what they had just witnessed. Was this a scripted stunt, a misunderstanding, or had the tension between Kelly and Stallone boiled over into an irreparable clash? Behind the scenes, the crew scrambled to respond to the unexpected departure of one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Kelly, though shaken, was quickly reassured by her team that the situation wasn't her fault. She was simply doing her job, asking the kinds of questions that most interviewers would. But in the aftermath of the incident, it was clear that something much deeper had been touched. Stallone, like many celebrities, had a limit at a point beyond which he would not tolerate certain lines of questioning. The public's reaction to the walk-off was swift and polarized. Some fans defended Stallone, applauding him for standing up for his boundaries and for being unapologetically true to himself. Others criticized him for overreacting, arguing that Kelly had only asked a question that any talk show host might ask. The media exploded with opinions, each outlet offering a different spin on the confrontation. Was Stallone's reaction justified, or was he simply too sensitive to handle a basic interview? The debate raged on for days. Kelly, for her part, remained calm in the aftermath. She released a statement saying that she respected Stallone and appreciated the time he had spent on her show, despite the unexpected departure. "I always aim to create a space where my guests feel comfortable," she said in her statement. "I never meant to make him feel disrespected. I hope he's okay." While Kelly's response was professional, the public wasn't satisfied. Many wanted to know what had really happened behind the scenes. What had triggered such an extreme reaction from Stallone? In the days following the incident, Stallone's representatives released a statement of their own. They expressed that Stallone had been under significant stress in recent months and that the interview had unintentionally touched on some personal issues that he wasn't prepared to discuss. "Sylvester is a private man," the statement read, "and while he appreciates the interest in his career, he reserves the right to protect his personal life. He was not comfortable discussing certain topics and made the decision to leave." The explanation, while not detailed, gave some insight into Stallone's perspective. As the weeks went by, the incident slowly faded from the headlines, though the footage of Stallone walking off the show continued to circulate online. Fans and critics alike still debated the event, with some suggesting that it had been a publicity stunt or a way to generate buzz for his upcoming projects. But for those who had witnessed the moment firsthand, there was little doubt, what they had seen was a genuine emotional response, not a scripted performance. Sylvester Stallone had walked off the Kelly Clarkson Show because he felt his boundaries had been violated. The incident also raised broader questions about the expectations placed on celebrities in interviews. Many began to wonder whether talk show hosts should reconsider how they approach sensitive topics, especially when dealing with individuals who have been in the public eye for decades. In a world where personal boundaries are becoming more important than ever, the interview became a case study on the delicate balance between curiosity and respect. Stallone's walk-off also sparked a discussion about the toll that fame takes on individuals, particularly those who have been in the industry for as long as he has. Many fans expressed sympathy for Stallone, recognizing that being constantly in the public eye for over 50 years could lead to moments of frustration and exhaustion. Others, however, argued that as a public figure, Stallone should expect these kinds of questions and learn to deal with them better. The debate became a microcosm of the larger conversation about the price of fame. Kelly's own response to the walk-off became a topic of discussion. While she had apologized several times during the interview, some people believed she should have done more to de-escalate the situation. Others praised her for handling the situation with grace, recognizing that interviews with such high-profile guests can be unpredictable. In the end, Kelly's calm demeanor and willingness to take responsibility for the moment helped her navigate the fallout in the public eye. In a later interview, Kelly reflected on the incident, saying, "There's a fine line between asking questions and respecting someone's boundaries. I learned it the hard way." She went on to explain that, while she always strives to make her guests feel comfortable, she also has to ask the tough questions. "But there's no script for moments like these," she said. "Sometimes, things just happen, and when they do, you have to roll with it." For Stallone, the walk-off had become a defining moment in his career, one that overshadowed any movie release or public appearance. His reputation as a tough guy had always been a part of his persona, but the incident revealed a more vulnerable side of him, a man who had reached his limit. As the media cycle continued to churn, Stallone's decision to walk away was interpreted as an act of self-preservation, a refusal to allow his emotional boundaries to be crossed any further. Behind the scenes, Stallone's team worked tirelessly to manage the fallout. They clarified that Stallone had not intended to cause any harm to Kelly or her show, but simply had reached a point where he couldn't continue. "Sylvester is a man of integrity," his representative said. "He made a decision based on his personal feelings, and he stands by it." The statement helped to calm some of the criticism, though it did little to quell the ongoing debate in the media. Despite the negative press, Stallone's career remained strong, and his fan base showed unwavering support. Many saw his walk-off as a sign of strength rather than weakness. It became an emblematic moment for fans who admired Stallone's ability to stand his ground, even in the face of a media storm. For some, it cemented his status as a true icon, as someone who was not afraid to protect his personal life and emotional well-being, no matter the cost. The Kelly Clarkson Show, meanwhile, moved on from the incident as well. Although it was a difficult moment for everyone involved, the show's producers chose to focus on the positive aspects of the episode. Kelly continued to welcome celebrity guests with the same enthusiasm and warmth, though some critics noted that the walk-off had changed the tone of future interviews. The show began to emphasize more relaxed, enjoyable conversations, while also being mindful of guest boundaries. For fans, the walk-off was a reminder that celebrities, no matter how famous, are still human beings with limits. The idea that someone as tough as Stallone could walk away from a situation spoke volumes about the pressures of constant public scrutiny. It was a moment of reflection, not only on the celebrity world but also on how society views and treats those in the public eye. The incident forced everyone to question their expectations and assumptions about fame and the toll it takes. In the years following the walk-off, both Stallone and Kelly continued to thrive in their respective careers. However, the incident remained a poignant part of their histories. For Stallone, it was a reminder that no matter how much fame or fortune one accumulates, emotional well-being should always come first. For Kelly, it served as a lesson in sensitivity, reminding her to approach each guest with care and respect. The walk-off had left an indelible mark on both their lives and careers. The walk-off also became a popular topic in media studies classes, where students analyzed the dynamics of celebrity interviews and the importance of respecting boundaries. The incident was used as an example of how an interviewer's curiosity can sometimes clash with the guest's personal limits, and how important it is to navigate those boundaries with caution and empathy. Students debated whether Kelly could have handled the situation differently, but most agreed that the moment was an important lesson in the ethics of celebrity interviews. As time passed, the walk-off became less of a scandal and more of a cultural touchstone. It was referenced in discussions about media ethics, emotional intelligence, and the changing nature of celebrity culture. In hindsight, both Stallone and Kelly came to be seen as representatives of a larger shift in how we think about privacy, boundaries, and mental health in the entertainment industry. Their moment of tension became a defining moment not just for their careers, but for the industry as a whole. Eventually, both Stallone and Kelly found ways to move forward, their careers continuing to flourish in the years that followed. However, they both recognized that the walk-off had changed them. For Stallone, it was a reminder that even the toughest exterior could crack under pressure. For Kelly, It was a lesson in how to navigate the complex emotional landscape of celebrity interviews. Both walked away from the incident with newfound respect for their own boundaries and for those of others. In the years that followed, Sylvester Stallone would occasionally reference the walk-off in interviews, though always in a calm and measured way. He acknowledged that it was a difficult moment, but one that he had learned from. "Sometimes, you have to stand your ground," he said in one interview, "even if it means walking away." The incident, though painful at the time, became a moment of personal growth for Stallone, one that added to his legendary status. The walk-off had a lasting impact not just on Stallone and Kelly, but on the way celebrity interviews are conducted moving forward. Talk show hosts and producers alike began re-evaluating how they approached sensitive topics, with many opting to give guests more control over the direction of the conversation. It was a quiet revolution in the world of entertainment, a reminder that the line between personal and public is a fragile one, and that sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away. As the years passed, the Sylvester Stallone walk-off incident became an iconic moment in talk show history. Though it had initially sparked widespread debate and speculation, it slowly turned into a valuable teaching moment for future generations of interviewers. Aspiring journalists and TV hosts used the episode as an example of how personal boundaries in interviews should be respected. It demonstrated that sometimes, even the most well-crafted and respectful questions can trigger a response that goes beyond what was intended. It was a clear reminder that celebrity interviews need a delicate balance between curiosity and empathy. In the aftermath, Stallone's decision to walk off the show was often referenced by both public figures and fans alike as an act of self-respect. In an industry where celebrities are expected to endure a relentless level of scrutiny, Stallone's choice to protect his emotional boundaries was viewed as an empowering moment. People began discussing the importance of emotional autonomy, not just in the entertainment industry, but in all professions where personal and professional lives can become intertwined. Stallone had unwittingly become an advocate for emotional integrity. Kelly Clarkson, too, reflected on the incident in her own interviews. In a segment where she discussed the evolution of her career, she mentioned how her own understanding of vulnerability had deepened after the walk-off. She admitted that, as a host, she had always prided herself on asking meaningful questions, but after the encounter with Stallone, she realized the importance of knowing when to back off. "It's about recognizing the signs when someone is uncomfortable," Kelly said in one of her later interviews. "I've learned that it's just as important to listen to silence as it is to listen to words." The episode sparked a wave of interviews in which celebrities, both new and seasoned, discussed their own experiences with the pressures of fame. For the first time, many began to speak openly about their emotional struggles, the toll of constant media attention, and the boundaries they had learned to set. While some fans were disappointed by Stallone's walk-off, others found solidarity in his decision to stand firm. It gave them the courage to be more vocal about their own needs for privacy and space in their personal lives. In many ways, Stallone's walk-off had a lasting impact on his legacy. While he had already been an icon of action cinema, the incident added a layer of complexity to his public persona. Fans started to see him not just as a tough, unyielding figure but as a human being who was willing to protect his emotional well-being. It was a rare glimpse behind the facade of Hollywood's toughest star, showing that even the most resilient individuals need boundaries. The walk-off solidified Stallone's status not just as an actor but as a symbol of self-preservation and mental health awareness. After the walk-off, Stallone took a brief hiatus from interviews. While his representatives insisted that it wasn't due to any fallout, the media speculated that he needed time to reflect on the incident and recalibrate. The break from the public eye allowed Stallone to focus on his family and his work without the added pressure of constant media scrutiny. When he returned to the spotlight, he did so on his own terms, with a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to prioritizing his own mental health over the demands of fame. Kelly, on the other hand, took the opportunity to refine her interviewing style. The incident with Stallone had taught her the importance of creating a safe and supportive environment for her guests. She began incorporating more reflective moments into her shows, where guests could discuss their personal journeys, struggles, and triumphs without feeling pressured to perform or entertain. The interviews became less about quick sound bites and more about meaningful conversations that respected the boundaries of both the guest and the audience. The Sylvester Stallone walk-off became a turning point for both Kelly and Stallone, but also for the entertainment industry as a whole. Talk shows, once known for their light-hearted banter and quick-witted exchanges, began to adopt a more thoughtful approach to celebrity interviews. There was a growing recognition that the pressure of constant performance could be exhausting, and that interviews should be a place for genuine connection, not just for promoting projects or creating viral moments. Fans, too, began to demand more from the media. The incident encouraged people to question how celebrities were treated on talk shows and how much of their personal lives were fair game for public consumption. It sparked a broader conversation about media ethics, the limits of public curiosity, and the responsibility of both journalists and interviewees to maintain a sense of respect for personal boundaries. As audiences became more aware of the emotional toll of fame, they began to hold media outlets accountable for how they treated their subjects. In one of the most talked-about follow-up interviews, Stallone addressed the walk-off in a calm, measured tone. He explained that while he had been caught off guard, the real issue was not the question itself but the lack of understanding of his personal space. "I've been in the industry for decades, but that doesn't mean I owe everyone a window into my soul," he explained. "There's a point where you have to draw a line. And that's what I did." His words resonated deeply with fans, particularly those who had experienced their own struggles with setting boundaries in their personal and professional lives. Kelly, too, received support from fans who admired her ability to take responsibility for the awkward moment. "It was a learning experience," she said. "I've had to reassess how I approach my guests, especially when it comes to sensitive topics. I'll never stop asking the tough questions, but I'll always make sure to do so with respect." Many saw her response as an example of growth and maturity, acknowledging that learning from one's mistakes is a crucial part of being a responsible public figure. The walk-off became one of those moments in entertainment history that people could look back on as a turning point in the relationships between celebrities and the media. It highlighted the need for respect, boundaries, and understanding. The fallout from the incident wasn't about blame or shame yet, it was about starting a conversation that had long been avoided in the world of celebrity interviews. Stallone's decision to walk away from the conversation was a symbolic act, one that called attention to the emotional cost of fame and the need for change. As the years passed, the media began to recognize that moments of tension, like the one between Kelly and Stallone, didn't always have to result in scandal. Sometimes, they could be an opportunity for learning and growth. The entertainment industry began to shift towards a more empathetic approach, where the emotional well-being of guests was considered just as important as the ratings. Talk shows and interviews became a platform not just for promoting movies or albums but for discussing the real challenges of being in the public eye. The Stallone walk-off incident also inspired a wave of change in the way celebrities approached their media appearances. More and more stars began to set clear boundaries before going on shows, ensuring they were only discussing what they felt comfortable with. This shift was welcomed by fans, who appreciated seeing their favorite stars in more authentic, relaxed settings. Celebrities, too, began to recognize that they didn't have to constantly perform for the public and that it was okay to say no to questions that made them uncomfortable. In the end, the Sylvester Stallone walks-off Kelly Clarkson's show moment became an iconic example of how a simple interview could change the dynamics of celebrity-media interactions. It wasn't about the walk-off itself but about what it represented, a shift in the power dynamics between celebrities and the media, a growing recognition of the importance of personal boundaries, and a reminder that even in the world of Hollywood, self-respect should always come first.